I'm fed up with them. They think that they can control you because you need them. I don't need them.
Welcome to the Bonafide podcast with Luke Bona. And he's not.
Here we go.
Done.
Hold your ears, folks.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a little while since we've had One Nation leader, Senator Pauline Hanson, on the Bonafide podcast, and what a time to have her on right now. There's so much going on. I want to welcome her again. Senator, g'day again.
G'day, Luke. It is good to be on your program. I love talking to you.
Well, we don't always have to agree, and if we do, it's boring, but at least we listen, don't we? And I always end up learning something.
Well, look, I think when you do these podcasts, when you talk to anyone, the public want to know what's going on. They want to be informed, and I think it's important to do that. And, of course, myself being a senator, leader of a political party, there's a lot that's going on, and I think people need to be informed and crying out to hear what's happening.
I watched with great interest your address at the National Press Club, and I want to get to some of the points you made, one in particular about multiculturalism and monoculturalism. But the big story today is the Karl Stefanovic drama, and I know that you're a friend of Karl Stefanovic's. The news, and I've explained this and we've talked about it with entertainment reporter Rob McKnight already, Karl Stefanovic no longer works at Channel 9, 26 years there, and co-host of the Today Show for many, many years. And, Senator, we're all scratching our head as to exactly why. Now, thanks to you, I was able to see the whole interview with Tommy Robertson, and I am scratching my head as to why Channel 9 found it so offensive. As far as interviews go, I thought it was fairly vanilla. In fact, there wasn't a lot of pushback, but Karl Stefanovic has actually released a voice clip today saying that what he wants to do is allow the listener to make up their own minds and talk to people. Now, surely in this country, as a broadcaster, we should be able to talk to controversial people so that our listeners can make up their own minds as to how they feel about what's on their minds, their policies, their beliefs, so that we become more informed. And as soon as the mad effing witches and the big networks say, no, that doesn't suit our narrative or our brand, I think we're all in trouble. What are your thoughts?
I think you're spot on with that. To tell you the truth, I haven't watched the full interview. I watched Tommy's comments with regards to me because that was brought to my attention, but I haven't had a chance because of Parliament this week. Luke, I think Channel 9's gone woke, and it's been for many years. Channel 7, and of course they're all on the same lines as ABC. I hardly ever, since I had that stoush with Channel 7 over immigration with Darren Hinch and Koshy that time, I never went back and did their programs anymore. Channel 9 was exactly the same. Although Karl wanted me on, he kept saying, would you come on? I said, not on that woke program. They didn't want me on. So that's what's happened. Channel 9 is still very woke. Even when they're interviewing me, the questions they put. And it was Channel 9 with that stupid journalist in WA, asking, is Gina's jet broken? Is Gina's jet broken? Did you fly cattle class? So anyway, as I said, I haven't watched the full interview. Now, Tommy Robinson has got nothing to do with Australia. He's in Britain. So I presume he was asking about what's happening in Britain. But they don't want the public to see these issues because they can see it's going to impact here in Australia to talk about it. So that's why they wanted him to shut down. Not only that, Karl is doing this on the sideline and he's become too conservative. That's not down their line. So they don't want a conservative person working for them and that image they will portray. So they're trying to shut down all this, being open and honest and letting people make up their own minds. So I think Channel 9 will suffer because of this, losing Karl at this stage. So anyway, we'll see what happens. But, it's a shame, but that's a decision that they've done, and I think Channel 9 will suffer for it.
Now, I read with, I don't know, amusement perhaps, a wry smile certainly crept across my face when I read that you've offered him a job. What's the story there?
I said that tongue-in-cheek. I haven't even spoken to Karl. But so the whole fact is, I just threw that in when I was on Bolt that night.
On Sky,
I said, Karl, come work for me. Karl Stefanovic would not fit in a parliamentarian's office, I can assure you. Maybe him being the parliamentarian himself, but definitely not as an advisor. But so that was said in tongue-in-cheek. But, who knows what he's going to do. I presume Karl will actually keep going with his podcasts, which I believe are doing quite well. So good luck to him. And if he's getting the message out, people enjoy watching it. And I think that's what he'll do.
But it seems to me that objection groups like the Mad Effing Witches are now controlling radio and television policy.
This is what the people must understand, is that they don't like what you're doing or who you're interviewing.
They did it with Alan Jones. I saw it.
Correct. They go to the sponsors and they put up such a hoo-ha about it that they get the sponsors to pull out of sponsoring that program. And I think this is so wrong. And I hope that people speak up yourselves and say, no, I'm going to sponsor you. You go on to those programs, say, no, we're going to continue to sponsor you and follow you, support you. The public need to start to wake up. The public need to start speaking up, and don't allow these witches and these other groups dictate the terms, because it'll be shut down one day. You won't have freedom of speech. You won't have anything. If people want to listen to someone talk like myself or Karl Stefanovic or anyone else, you have that right to. You're not stupid. You listen to it. You make up your own minds. You may not agree with everything that you hear, but don't let them take away your right to do that.
Well, it's all anyone's talking about today. Maybe it won't be talked about tomorrow. But the interesting thing, Senator, is that Karl Stefanovic was due to be on ARN on their Friday afternoon radio show with Eddie Maguire, and that's not happening now.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
So ARN, who remember employed Kyle Sandilands, were affected by the Mad Effing Witches as well. Maybe ARN now, with all this surrounding Karl Stefanovic. I'm going to get my Kyles and my Karls correct, but you're going to help me here. But maybe with the drama, the Mad Effing Witches aimed at ARN with Kyle Sandilands, they're concerned that the same lack of revenue and the response from the Mad Effing Witches will happen if they have Karl Stefanovic on.
Look, possibly so, but I'm not too worried about it. People are waking up and another door will open. I have no doubt about it. Things will actually pan out. They won't win in the long run. There's too much happening in Australia now that people have actually opening up their eyes, and they're not going to put up with this rubbish.
I wanted to talk to you about your address at the National Press Club. I thought it was fascinating. From the moment you started, you said there will be no welcome to country. There was a protest from Get Up, which I think they kicked the biggest Get Up home goal I've ever seen, and David Shiraz, and I can get your response to that because you didn't seem to worried about it. You know, I reckon you knew as soon as that yellow banner came down, you thought, these stupid bastards, they've just played into my hands. They have just shown themselves. I could be wrong. I shouldn't speak for you.
Yeah.
You also had a journalist from The Guardian. You sat her on her ass, and the rest of the press gallery laughed and applauded. So I reckon there were a lot of highbrow journalists waiting to see you trip over or someone get you with a gotcha moment, and you didn't give it to them. And I thought, well, maybe a few days after your address, they'll think about what you said and they'll crucify you in the press, and it hasn't happened. Why do you think that is?
You're exactly right. They were waiting for me to fall flat on my face. And as one journalist said, it's okay if someone can deliver a speech, but then again, when you're asked those individual questions from journalists, that's when you can fall flat on your face, which I didn't, because I'm myself, Luke, okay? I just say it and answer it the way that I see it.
Is Channel 9 here? I just want to clarify that no, Gina's jet is not broken, and I didn't come cattle class, or I did come cattle class actually. So anyway.
And I don't need a script to be me. And remember, I started this 30 years ago. I was out of politics for 18, but basically a lot in the media over that period of time. And this last 10 years has taught me a lot. And you get to a stage in your life that, you know, I'm basically have been fighting and to do something to pull the country back. And I thought, you're not going to just try and get me on a gotcha moment or whatever. I thought, no, I'm fed up with them. I really am fed up with the media. And I said that in my speech. And they think that they can control you because you need them. I don't need them. Luke, I've got over 1 million followers on my Facebook page. And some of these, even Murray Watt, he's the minister. He's got 21,000. That tells you the people are interested in what I have to say. This is very important. That's where they're starting to wake up. And doing podcasts like yourself or Karl Stefanovic or all these other podcasters that are out there now, we're getting our message out. So we don't need the media that twist all the time what you're saying. They doctor spin it. They actually put their headlines that are grabbing headlines, nothing to do with the story. I've had a gutful of it. I'm sick and tired of it. And ever since I've got in this position where I've gone up in the polls, the things that they are trying to drag out, they've gone to my staff who worked for me over 5 years ago to get anything on me. They've gone, to way back in my past in the 1970s to try and get any dirt on me. This is how gutter, trashy they are, these journos. And this one that I put in her place.
From The Guardian.
Correct, right? What she's been dragging up or trying to drag up is just abysmal. And it's never, and my media advisor who works for me, and he used to work for the Liberal Party, he's been in this game for a long, he said, I've never seen anything like this before in my life.
Okay, she was referring to she was referring to your daughter.
Yep.
And implying that you got her a job.
Correct. And why is she living in Tassie? Well, I can tell you something. My daughter took a substantial drop in wages to what she gets now. I'm talking about a real substantial drop in wages. She's a very clever, smart young woman. And so anyway, she's taken a big drop in wages to work with politics. She works her butt off and constantly, working. She said, Mum, I've never worked as hard in my life. She doesn't have a weekend off. It's always something happening or the phone's ringing. And then on top of that, then they have a go. She's living in Tasmania. It's quite common. One of the senators from Tasmania, their staffer lives in Tasmania as well. But they wanted to, pick me up and have a go at me. That's what I said to her. I said, you have not done your research. All you want to do is have a go at myself and One Nation.
Well,
and that's why I said, keep away from me. She's been trying to get interviews with me all week. I told her, not interested. Don't come near me. You won't get an answer.
Pauline, I would love to talk to Lee about her thoughts, her philosophy, and her ambitions. Is she going to run for the Senate for Tasmania?
Definitely.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She ran last time. She just missed out. It's taken me a long time. She's 42. Anyway, it's taken her a long time, but she said, Mum, I realise now that I can't just sit back and do nothing. She said, I've got 2 young children and I'm worried about the future. And she said, I always thought to myself after seeing you do what you've done and what you've been through, she said, I just didn't think that, I could do it. And that scared her. But now that she's involved, she's doing a fantastic job. I tell you what, I'm very hard when it comes to politics or people working around me, that type of thing. We've only got a window of opportunity to make a difference. She's one of those people. Everyone, all the staff, the members of parliament, everyone, credit her with the ability and the smartness that she has to be able to do the job. Otherwise, she wouldn't be around me, Luke, I can tell you now.
Well, I would love very much the opportunity to talk to your daughter at one point. So if you could pass on to her minders that we're interested, that'd be great. Yeah,
I will do that, Luke. Yes.
Now, I've got to be completely transparent. I think it was last week, we had the Green Senator David Shoebridge on the podcast, who's not a big fan of yours. And we were talking about your address at the National Press Club, about your comments that Australia cannot be multicultural and must exist as a monocultural society. And I wanted to get context from you. I'd rather talk to you than listen to other journalists' interpretation of what you meant by that. So, and Kelsey and I were actually having a conversation last week. We said to each other, what is the definition of Australian culture? And I said, well, it's a fair go. You work hard, you obey the laws of the land, but we are a nation of people that has come together over 250 years from people from all over the world. And so when you say define what Australian culture is, you've got to kind of think about it. You think it's easy, but you think, well, define what Australian culture is. Now, just to get back to Shoebridge, I said to David Shoebridge, I can't assume what Senator Hanson is talking about or what context it is. But he said that he believes you're racist. What is monocultural and what is multicultural? I want to hear it from you. What does it mean?
Well, monocultural is basically used, and it's funny, used in the farming sector to grow the one crop. If you look it up, that's the definition of it. But monocultural in relation to a country is the one culture that you and the one set of rules. Multiculturalism was introduced basically that went worldwide. A lot of the countries now, and they thought, oh yes, you can have all these countries come together, all these people with all the different cultures, and where we can actually just all blend in together and there won't be any issues. But that hasn't happened. We thought it would be the way to go. Now, right from the start of 1996, in my original maiden speech in the House of Reps, I said multiculturalism won't work, and I was held down for it.
Immigration and multiculturalism are issues that this government is trying to address, but for far too long, ordinary Australians have been kept out of any debate by the major parties. I and most Australians want our immigration policy radically reviewed and that of multiculturalism abolished. A truly multicultural country can never be strong or united.
At that time.
Well, you said we're going to be overrun by Asians.
That's totally different to multiculturalism, right? So that's because we had a high intake of Asian migrants coming in through the family reunion program. That's why I said that. If we kept going this pattern, we were going to have, by 2050, 54% would be Asian. At the moment, we're about 20%, possibly even more. So multiculturalists having all these different cultures in there, possibly forming like a tribal thing. So you know that we're not going to be treated the same under the one law. So even through the court system, there was one case where a Japanese fellow, he extorted money and the courts let him off because of his cultural background, because it was his position, his culture.
I remember that, yeah.
Right. So because of his cultural background, his job was to look after his mother. So therefore the courts didn't treat him accordingly. If he wasn't Japanese, it would have been totally different. This is what I'm saying. We even now in Australia have court systems only for Aboriginal people to be treated differently in law because of their culture. This is what I'm saying. Then you're going to end up with Sharia law courts because of their cultural background or their beliefs.
So if you have someone that comes to Australia from a country where women are abused and treated as not second but third or fourth class citizens, and because of the culture they've come from, they come here and feel they can do the same here.
Correct.
You can't use my culture as defence because at the end of the day, you must obey Australian laws.
Correct.
Now
that's why.
But you said at the beginning at the press gallery, you said we are made up of people from all over the world, people who have lived and died for our flag and died for this country, and they've come from all over the world. So I kind of thought, well, you were embracing the fact that Australia,
correct,
particularly since the end of World War II, we enjoyed people coming to this country from other countries, but they embraced the Australian way of life. Define what that means.
Okay. Well, as I said to you about Sharia law, and I'll just finish it off. Sharia law has been enacted in our country in certain suburbs, and they actually marry under Sharia law. They have multiple wives under Sharia law. They have their child brides under the Sharia law. And what happens, that's not the Australian culture that I want, and it shouldn't be happening here. But the governments have turned a blind eye to it. So the Australian culture is, and what we must look at is everyone must be treated the same under the one law. No ifs, buts, nothing. And you're right. I've always welcomed people that come here, and a lot of people from different racial backgrounds have stood as candidates for me. So we are multiracial, but at the end of the day, we are Australians. So these people that choose to come here, we're not kicking, dragging, screaming them coming here. They're choosing to come here to Australia. What Shoebridge and the Greens and everyone are reluctant to acknowledge or want to say is a lot of these migrants that come here, I'll be walking down the street or doing my shopping, and this migrant come up, can I give you a hug? And they said, we are Australian. We love this country. You know, You are right in what you say. They don't see this. They don't embrace it. They don't understand. And to be an Australian, okay, there's many issues with this. It's basically the rule of law that we have. It's our constitution. We have a separate constitution to other nations around the world. We know if you go to Japan, your culture and your laws, they're totally different to the way we are, the way we dress. If you look at a Japanese, the way they dress to the way Australians dress. We don't wear the burqa. That's totally different to us as well. It's foreign to us. Then you have it's everything that makes up our larrikinism. Like we had, Hogan, and when we had Bert Newton, we had Norman Gunston to actually, who we are as a nation. Then we have our beaches, wearing the bikini. Where else did you ever go in the world to see that? It's a combination of many things, or the shrimp on the Barbie with Paul Hogan, what other country would you go there and do that? So it's the way that we embrace this country and everything that it has to offer, but it's being proud who we are. And that's why I referred back to the Socceroos. And they were having a go at me, if she had her way, you wouldn't have it. That's a load of rubbish. It's people, the team that they fought on that field to win that game. As Australians, they all wore the green and gold. They all played by the same rules. There was the mateship working together to achieve what they wanted to do, and that was to work together to beat Turkey. So when you go to the Olympics, what do? You fly the Australian flag. They're all proudly marching together in that opening ceremony and the closing ceremony as Australians. So that's what it is. We know who we are.
Do you know what, Senator? Because this is not news, but it was driven home to me that if you do visit another country that has a culture that is expected to be upheld, you either uphold it or don't go there. And for example, there's an example recently of a tourist that went to Bali, and he was there during Nyepi, Nyepi, which is their sacred Hindu New Year day, and it's a day of silence, and you stay inside. Now that's their culture. That's their thing. And he posted himself on what a stupid thing it was, and there he was at a resort, and he's outside, and he got arrested. Yeah. Now, it's common knowledge. DFAT will tell you, any tourist operator will tell you, Nyepi is a day where you stay inside for 24 hours and you isolate, and that's their culture. And if you don't like it, don't go there during Nyepi. That's just Bali expecting tourists to adhere to their culture. And is that what you're saying? You come to Australia,
Good.
Sharia law is out the window. We have a separation of the church and the state. It's not all one. And you come to Australia, we embrace you, but obey our laws. I don't want to talk for you, but am I going along the right way?
Correct. So I don't want to see this country ending up with future generations having divisions and having your enclaves of this cultural identity as one. Let me put it this way also. Years ago, this woman from Russia, she spoke to me and she said, Pauline, you're right. She said, we came here to Australia with my parents. And she said, Mum said, we will learn the English. We will, embrace this country. We are now Australians. And Dad was saying, no, we will keep our language. The mother said, no, you won't. We are now in Australia. And that's the problem with it. See, we keep putting out language in foreign language all the time. And that really annoys me. You should have some knowledge of the English language prior to coming here if you want to be Australians and live in this country on a permanent residency. But we keep putting out literature in their language. Now, you tell me, as I said, there's 872,000 people in Australia that have admitted in the census, and that was 5 years ago, that they speak little or no English at all. Now, if these people are permanent residents here or become citizens and they can't speak the language, they're voting in our elections. Where did they get their information to listen to this podcast or to actually watch TV and know what the hell is going on in our country with politics? How do they know who to vote for and making the right decision?
But would you agree it's a really great thing to come from a bilingual? I wish I spoke another language. And my son's wife is from Brazil, and she speaks Portuguese, and my granddaughter is learning both English and Portuguese. And I think that's a good thing, don't you?
Of course, it's a good thing. I think it's not a good thing to expand your knowledge, and especially of your cultural background. Like when I went to school, I started learning French. That's really spoken. But, I've met people, even my member of parliament, and he came from Argentina. He speaks two languages, 3 languages. So it's not, that's got nothing to do with it. That's just ridiculous. I'm saying is you're in a country that is predominantly speaks English.
English is
learn English. Assimilate. Know what you're doing. Why should you walk down streets now that all it is in Chinese or another language? How does that help me? Why should I have to learn their language when it's my country? Why should I have to be faced with foreign language that I don't know what it says?
I want to talk about the Bondi hero Ahmed Al-Ahmed, who is Muslim.
Yeah.
What a good thing he came to the country. How many lives did he save on the 14th of December, that terrible day in Bondi? But you know what makes me sad, Senator? The fact that there are now allegations that his brother and his father were trying to extort money from him. And there's an assault allegation, which is before the courts. That to me is so sad.
It is very sad, actually. I met him personally, and I happened to be at the Opera House that night. They had that function for the Jewish community.
Yeah.
And I went up and I actually thanked him and for what he did, for his bravery. And that's what it is. That everything here is about being Australian.
So you haven't got a problem with Muslims coming to Australia?
No, I have a problem with radical Islam.
Radical Islam. That's the line. So you haven't got a problem with Muslims?
No, but I have a problem. As I said to you, you want to bring Sharia law, you want to oppress women, and you want to put them in the burqa. I have a real problem with that. Multiple marriage, I have a problem with it. Female circumcision, I've got a problem with that. Child brides, I've got a big problem with that. And I'm not going to turn a blind eye to this. You want to live by that religious belief away, then find yourself a country that will accommodate you. It will not change in Australia. And we've allowed this to happen in our suburbs in Australia, and it's not on because they turned a blind eye to it. Why do you think we've got 18,000 people? I don't know what they're under ASIO surveillance at the moment, and really 220 that's possibly associated. We've got so much radical Islam, radicalising going on in Australia, and we're under a probable or possible terrorist attack. And why the hell are we allowing this to happen? That's why I'm adamant we really need to screen where we bring these people from, what's their beliefs, and that is a cancer that will spread throughout our society. I'm not going to allow Australia to become like Germany, France, Denmark, England, which have lost their identity.
We got our ASIO, the Australian Federal Police, and the New South Wales Police got massively caught out on that 14th of December at Bondi. Those two gunmen were radicalised and fell through the cracks. And there are people who are saying, well, how do we know that the ISIS brides haven't been radicalised? And I noticed that the final remaining Australian ISIS bride, these are people with Australian passports, Australian citizenship,
yep,
who've decided now they want to come home. And there's a big debate over that. And the last ISIS bride, Hoden Abbey, has been granted a return permit and is legally now allowed back into Australia. Now, how do we know they haven't been radicalised? It's a fair question. How do we suss that out? And if they're Australian citizens, they have every right to come back to Australia. And we don't want to get caught like we were on the 14th of December at Bondi. But how do we know, Senator, that these women didn't go with their husbands to fight and support ISIS and they weren't under duress, they weren't forced to, they weren't threatened? How do we know that?
Well, we don't. And for the pure fact that they've been in those camps over there, radicalisation that's happening even with their children, they're martyrs. The women supported their husbands, and these women, you have no idea. You really have to understand their belief and the way they think. It's like brainwashing that they go through. We're all infidels to them. They have no time. They will blend in as much as possible. They will do what they need to do. But at the end of it, they have their own beliefs, and it's not to the Western way of life. They hate Western culture. Have no doubt about it.
It's very
Those
hard.
children.
It's
yep.
It's almost impossible. I'm talking about radical Islam here, folks. Radical Islam.
Yep.
ISIS. People who supported ISIS. It's very hard to engage and win a war against an ideology that believes martyrdom, and sacrificing your life is the ultimate goal in life. I mean, Saddam Hussein, who was a radical dictator, ran away. He was a coward. He didn't want to die. But when you're fighting an ideology where that's the ultimate reward, how do you combat that?
You can't. And that's why my concern is with these children. And as they've said, they've only offered them to de-radicalise the children if they want to do it. So who knows if they're going to be able to try and attempt to do it or not.
Yeah.
And these children were faced, what they were with one of the children were faced with their father standing there holding up a severed head.
Oh,
And this is why you've had this ones in England, the problems that they're having in England with a lot of the Muslim gangs and men over there, that the girls are being raped because the men feel, well, you want to dress that way. If you're not covered up, you're then easy meat. That's the way they think. I'm sorry, Luke, that's the way it is. People need to realise their mentality and the way they think. And if you think that it changed because they come here to this country, it's going to change, well, think twice about it. And that's why I'm saying we can't deal with the issue, the problem, when it's too late.
I know that you've only got half an hour with me, and I appreciate the time you've given me. I've got to ask you something. The polls, 3 polls in a row, you're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. You're resonating. You're getting traction and cut through, as we say in radio. For you and your leader of One Nation, are you going to run for a seat in the House of Reps?
Luke, good try, but I'm not giving you an exclusive on your program.
Come on. Senator Pauline Hanson, if you want to be Prime Minister, John Gorton was elected leader of
correct.
But
in the Senate. He was in the Senate for 3 months.
But then he went for Harold Holt's by-election and he had to go in the House of Reps. Come, Senator, give me a bone. Throw me a bone.
You tell me where in the Constitution does it say
no, it doesn't.
That correct?
It doesn't.
It's only by convention. It's only by convention that you have to move to the lower house.
I know that. I'm aware. That's why I use John. That's why I use John Gorton as an example. But it's my opinion that to have control of the House of Reps, you've got to be in the House of Reps.
Well, we'll see what happens. It's going to be another year and a half. I think we'll have an election by the end of next year. I think they'll bring down a softer budget in May, and I think that they have to go to election for both houses after August next year. I'm predicting the election probably October, November next year. So it'll be an early election. I think they're going to try and go to an early election to save as many chairs on the sinking Titanic as they can.
Okay, you've got to throw me a bone, Senator. Come on. It'd be a Queensland seat. Which seat? It's hypothetical. This is not going to.
There you go. There's too many seats out there.
Which one catches your eye?
Well, there's a few seats I could actually stand in. It could be Wright, it could be Blair, it could be Oxley, and it could be Capricornia. So Central Queensland, because I've got land up there, considering building up there.
Hang on, Capricornia, yeah. Back to Oxley.
Yep, Blair or Wright.
Blair or Wright. Which one do you like? Which one do you like the best?
So anyway,
come on.
There's an option there.
Throw me a bone. Which one?
Quite a few of them. I don't think I want to move out of Queensland, although I love Australia. I think Australia's beautiful. I love the country, but that decision will be made further down the track of what's going to happen or whether I stay in the Senate. So a lot of decisions to be made. You say we're going up in the polls, and I acknowledge that, and it's evident, but they're only polls. Elections and polls, like the stock exchange, go up one day and down the next. So it's about proving to the people working hard to put out my policies to gain confidence from the Australian people that One Nation could and will do a great job of being government. But they keep throwing at us they don't have the experience and knowledge. I've got Barnaby Joyce, who's been Deputy Prime Minister of this country, held portfolios. I've got CEO of big international companies. I've got one of the biggest employers in Australia is also a senator from Western Australia. So the experience that we have in this party, myself and the experience I have in politics, and been a small businesswoman most of my life. So there's a lot of things there. I've got a lot of prominent people, not prominent, but people who will be able to do it. Because I say to people now, have a look what you've got. You tell me on offer from those ministers that are holding these portfolios that have failed constantly time and time again with this current government's policies that they've brought in. They bring in their own legislation yesterday to do with the capital gains tax and the other. What they failed to tell people is that if you die and the government then can take the wealth tax from your partner in their superannuation and the assets. they didn't realise that till the last minute. And they said, "Oh, we'll fix that. Fix it down the track." Correct. Fix it when. So they are constantly making mistakes all the time. We see this all the time. They put up a bill, then they'll put up amendments to their own bill. They rush everything through. So don't have a go at me or One Nation about the job that we'll be able to do, because they have failed constantly all the time to get it right. Even their housing policy, everything that they've done, they cannot get it right. And so we're going to really go for to be government of this nation. It has to turn around. It's got to change. We're running this country into the ground. Economically and standard of living, way of life, it's all been destroyed under this current government.
Senator Hanson, or can I call you Pauline?
Call me Pauline. I think I've told you to do that before.
Yeah, but I do show respect. I've just got out Google Maps here. Just bear with me for a second, okay? In a Western Sydney, you would love Leichhardt, Marrickville, Newtown, Petersham, Summerhill. There's a seat there called Grainler. Would you have a...
No way in the wide world. No way in the wide world. Would you get me to live in Sydney?
Yeah,
oh my God.
The seat of Grainler.
I know.
You know,
yeah, the PMC.
It's a
I know, PMC. Yeah.
So here's my challenge to you. Take on the Prime Minister head on in his own seat.
Not interested. I would not. No way in the wide world. You couldn't even pay
You'd love
me to live in
Marrickville.
Sydney.
You'd love Newtown and Petersham.
I've been there. We used to have. Oh God, in Sydney, we used to have our own One Nation soccer team, A grade men's and women's soccer team.
Really?
Years ago, 1997,
what position were you?
98.
What position were you?
I know I can't play soccer. Never have done. And that's Luke. That was nearly 30 years ago.
Did you play in the team? Did you play in the team or not?
No, not soccer. No, these are competitive soccer.
Okay, all right,
no, we didn't. This was competition
soccer.
I'm
sorry, because you'd have made a great goalkeeper.
Yep.
People have been terrified to kick the ball there. Or you could have at least done the oranges at half time.
I could have, but anyway, no. Luke. Off the table, I'll tell you a definite no to that one. So you've got my answer on that one.
But hang on, it was worth a try, wasn't it?
Oh, it was worth a try. You can ask the question, but I've given you an answer too.
But I get points for trying?
Of course you do. You've asked a question. No problem with asking a question. I'll give you an answer.
I appreciate your time. You've given me way more than they said you had time for. I appreciate it. Thank you for letting us get to know you a little bit better. And can we talk again soon? And I want to talk to your daughter Lee about her aspirations as well.
Will do, Luke. I'll pass it on to Lee. So anyway, it's lovely to talk with you. And all right, take care.
One Nation leader, Senator Pauline Hanson, here on Bonafide.